Hi, you are on a channel building digital products where we speak about the technologies that can boost your business here and now. And our today guest is Jari Aho. He is a digital strategy execution advisor and a transformation generalist. Jari is an entrepreneur with expertise in change management, corporate training, and team buildings. He is also a seasoned DevOps expert. For the past 4 years, you've been COO and partner at Force Agile company. The big idea behind the Force Agile is to unlock the synergy between technologies and people. And my question is, how does your approach differ from the traditional Agile methods?
Well, the methods, most of them, if we talk about tools, are similar. We are not a framework or anything. What we do is we focus on the human factors, and that's because of years ago I read in Harvard research that Agile doesn't work without psychological safety. So then we realized that if we train people to work Agile, then we also need to make sure that it actually works when they work with it. So that's when we started working on what factors are important to make Agile work. And if you look at our website, then there's a small part that is called Essential Agile. And basically that's the recipe for things that you need to handle to make sure that it actually works. So that's why that's why it's called Force Agile also, because we want to improve that force.
Mm-hmm. And maybe do you have or could you share with us some key techniques and tools that Force Agile uses to help companies make more value with their existing teams?
It's a lot of factors, because we base our knowledge on science, and I have some of the best scientific people to my help. And for example, one thing is important to create psychological safety, so we get Agile to work. Then we need to figure out what's going on in the organization. So first of all, for example, we use a tool called Culture Exploit. Because everybody heard that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what we want to do is to make culture and strategy eat breakfast together. So that's first start. And when we do that, then it's very, very important. Well, you probably heard about whistleblowing. It's a law in EU. Then you can actually make sure that something comes up to the surface and you can be anonymous. And this is the thing with Culture Exploit, that we ask questions and we don't care who gives us the information in the organization. We want to know the status and what's going on in the organization, because the statistics says that leaders know only 9.7% in average of what's going on in their organizations. And that's a very, very poor decision-making basis. So that's when we actually explore with Culture Exploits what's going on in this organization, and then we can help them. And then I normally talk about whiskey, because if you have a whiskey distillery and it's in one place and you buy it, you can't move it, because then you will change the flavor. So every organization has their own flavor. So if you work with a bank and help them and everything works, then you move to another bank, it's not sure that the same thing works there. So you need to figure out what's going on in this organization. And I think that that's our strength. We make it work.
Did you have in your experience like the most difficult case that you needed to adjust this method to this company?
Well, I would say that the biggest problem is often very high up in management. That's why I became interested in very difficult things like epistemology and ontology and then methodology. Because if you don't have the ethics and the moral, Well, you're from Ukraine, so there's things going on there between ethics of a moral of autocracy and then ethics and moral of democracy. And you know which one we want to win. And it's the same thing in organizations, that we need to have the same language. So we know what we have, and we don't want that bad thing. We want the good thing. And then everybody is important. And we also need to have the same language. So when we talk about psychological safety, that we know what that is actually. So, and we need to build the whole organization based on the same beliefs. So if I tell you that I like Agile, and this is what we did 4 years ago, we asked 100 people what Agile was. And the amazing thing was that we got more than 100 answers, because nobody knew. And that's what we have. We know what Agile is, and we try to actually live the way we preach. And there's a coherence between complexity. Since year 2000, the world is very complex. And to actually master complexity, digital is very complex. If you have huge systems, then it's very complex. So then you need to have something we call systems thinking, and to take care of all the things, as you see in Essential Agile, all the things that makes Agile work. And that's what Essential Agile is. So hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that it's will answer the question for our listeners who will watch this episode lately. And my next question is also very similar to the previous one, but a bit different. Based on your experience at Force Agile, how should organizations or companies measure when it's time for them to embark the digital transformation? What are the telltale signs?
Well, first of all, I think it's mandatory for any organization, because that's the future. And I think that Steve Jobs did put it very well. He said that when he was young, he read a study where they look at different species on Earth, and how much energy they used to actually take themselves forward. And then the condor, I think, from South America, the bird won, because it was very, very low on energy when it was flying around. And the human race, people came very low. But then, as he said, somebody smart gave that human a bicycle. So then the result improved for humans who won that test. So what he says digital is like a bicycle for the mind. Mm-hmm. So it's a tool that will help us. So I would say that every organization should start thinking about becoming more and more digital to help the people who work in the organization and to help the customers. And that's basically the starting point. And then today everybody talks about AI.
For sure.
And like it was something that will happen exactly now, but then you need to start preparing. First of all, you probably have legacy systems, if you have anything. And then you need to get data from those legacy systems. And then I always preach about APIs. Your organization knows what APIs are, but many of the ones that listen, the people who listen to this, they probably don't know exactly what APIs are. But you need APIs to actually be able to get the data out. Some other processes, you don't have anything digital, so then you don't have any data. So then you need to think, okay, I need to start creating some kind of digital process so we can gather data and use AI in the future. And then also another thing, and that's why we have Essential Agile, is that if you have a poor process and make it digital, it's still a poor process. So you need to start thinking about your processes. So you get good processes, because a good process that gets digital is an excellent process. Something like that.
Thank you for your answer. And speaking about our company, we're nurturing for the last 2 years a culture of product mindset. And I think that you know what it means, but for our listeners who don't know, it means that each team member strives to understand the broader project pictures and contributes beyond just their job role to enhance the product. And from your perspective, what kind of culture is essential for the company success?
Yeah, well, you always said it, essential agile. You need to have some kind of philosophy in the basics. And then the culture for every organization is different. We live in different countries. We have different purposes. So culture needs to be like that whiskey flavor, something that is yours. But then at the same time, then we need to look at history, because the reason we have agile is because the world became complex. And then we have different degrees of difficulties in solving things. And then we had something called projects when we used to have waterfall models. But then we realized that the digitalization is too complex to use waterfall models. Because if you start building something, we have big examples from big banks who started building an internet bank. So they had a waterfall model, and then 4 years later, when they have done it, then it was too late, because then that was too old. So they had to throw it away. So then we need to work more agile. And then we stopped doing projects. So now we are more product oriented. So we try to create products and that comes from customer centric. So I would say that, yes, I understand that you're product focused because you build products, but you still need to be customer focused. The people who uses it. And then the thing here is that the culture needs to be co-creation of value together with the ones that use it, because they know why they use it, what value they get from it. So the value is very important. Sure. Yeah. So the product as such is not so important. It's the value it brings that is the important. So customer focus is good and better, I would say, as a definition of the focus.
I totally agree with you, because I've heard and I was learning a lot about a client and customer-oriented approach, about this, client centrism, if this word exists in the world. So you need to always put on the first place your customers, because customers change, the world is changing, and you cannot focus just on your product, because when you forget about your clients, your customers, you can just lose them, because too much focus on the improvements, on changing the things when customers exactly don't need it.
Exactly. Well put.
And my last question from this section is, what do you see as the biggest challenges companies face in adopting DevOps? And how does your company helps to overcome these challenges?
Well, I used to focus very much on DevOps in the past, so I became an expert on it. I even sold fully automated testing systems and systems from a supplier to an organization, so they could start doing automatic approaches to microservices and so on. And that's when we realized that the technology doesn't work if the humans doesn't work properly, and if the processes are working properly. So then we realized that taking care of that DevOps problem that was from the beginning, then we created a new silo, which was the IT department. And that's why we actually created Force Agile, because we needed to overcome that. So business is working with the customers, and that's when you need to co-create that customer value together with business. You can't just give something to your IT department and say, build this, because then they will build something that is actually colored by how they think. We need to have the customer focus. So we can't have silos. And we also need to have that psychological safety, because otherwise Agile won't work. So we need to work with the whole organization. and the why and the what. And then also that ethics and morals in what we are doing. So, and then we get alignment. And then we also get that autonomy. Because if you work with APIs, what happens is that you move the decision point somewhere else. And if you can't take decisions where you are working and bring in the value, then we have that bad decision material on 9.7%. And then you get bad quality. So when you start looking at it in a scientific way and in the way that we describe on that essential agile picture, that's why we built it like that. So it's easy to see and understand. But then you need to dive in and get training all the different parts, how you can make them to actually fit together. It's like having a puzzle. So let's say that you have a puzzle, you buy one puzzle, and then you can build a nice picture. But here, if we have silos, then we have different puzzles, and then we can't get the parts to connect.
That's a very good metaphor here.
Yeah. So, I mean, then you need to work closer with your customers, and DevOps can't be a silo. You need to start doing a little bit more new things like multi-competent teams, for example, to solve the things that needs to be solved, so we get that value that the customers are asking for. So that's what we work with, and that's why we started this organization, and we are still trying to become better and better every day. So.
And how maybe do you see, how did you measure that you achieved something new and, I don't know, improved your services? Do you have any, I don't know, statistics that show it? Or are you making the surveys from your clients?
Normally you can use mathematics. So let's say that you don't do any, because everybody talks about change. So, and if you don't change, then what we have learned that then you don't survive, first of all. So let's say we have status quo, nothing happens, then we will actually die. So that's something negative. So let's say that you get 1% worse every day. So if you take 1 and up to 365 for 1 year, then you get the number is 0.027. If we, on the other hand, start doing the change and improving small things every day in an agile way, and we improve 1% every day, then the number 1 up to 365 is 37.8. And that's 1,500 times better than the other result. And our record achievement is 2,500 times better.
Wow, that's a great result, honestly.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you do the right things and if you improve the decision-making basis and take right decisions, and that's what Agile is. How do you work in teams? How do you take decisions together? And those are the methods and tools we have in Agile. I mean, you have the Scrum Poker and other things so you can take decisions. And if you take a decision together, it is a decision, even if you don't like it. You need to work to improve. And that's when we learned also that even if you take the wrong decision, it's a good decision because then we learn. So sustainable improvement is sustainable learning. So you learn something every day. And if we learn something and use it, then we improve every day. So that's the 1%. And then you're 1,500 times better than if you have status quo, I would say.
And you mentioned that making the wrong decision, it's also like good for learning. And I also heard one phrase that the right decision are not always the pleasant one. So you need to accept this, and you cannot always, feel good after making them. Sometimes you just need to, to live this period and make not the pleasant one. Decisions.
Well, that's why we have trainings where we teach people what complexity is. And I'm lucky because I have a scientist with me. His name is Alf, and he used to work in Santa Fe in the States. And Santa Fe is the world's epicenter of complexity research. So this is, when I met him, he could tell me what complexity is. And if you have complexity, then you don't know the answer. So you need to do something to learn. And there can be 10 answers also. And that's why it's very important to understand what complexity is, how it affects the organization. And the first place we realized that was in digitization, because huge computer systems are very complex. And especially in the old days when we have monoliths. So if you did something in this end, something changed in the other end. And that's what we call systems thinking. You need to understand that what you do will actually not ruin something else somewhere else. So that's why you need to have systems thinking. And so first we'll teach everybody in the organization what complexity is. So you accept doing even something that you're not sure is perfect. Because if you go the lean way, it's all about perfection. You build cars, for example, and then you try to make it more and more perfect. So you build the perfect car. But in digital, it's not, you can't use that, because that's why we have MVPs, for example. You know what MVP is?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but the listeners, maybe it's the minimal viable product. So you need to do something to see if your thesis is actually working. And then you do it as cheap as possible, because if it doesn't work, if it delivers the wrong value, then you can throw it away and it doesn't cost you too much. But
yeah,
you
for
will
sure.
learn, and then you learn that this didn't work. So then you can actually probably achieve something that works. So the value of failing will give you a result later. But if you didn't fail, you will still continue failing. So, that's why it's good to fail, so you learn. And that's one of the lessons. But then that is hard for some people. And if you don't understand why, then you will resist change. So there's a lot of research, and then people train people in how to resist change. I claim that if you understand why the change is needed, then you won't resist it. But if you don't understand then you will be frightened. And so it's all about that psychological safety that Harvard Business School said 4 years ago, that if you don't have psychological safety, then Agile won't work. So that's why we always try to make sure that we have that before we start training people in doing something that won't work anyway. So you understand the meaning, that's essential Agile. If you want Agile to work, then you need to think of all the things that we put in there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and
Thank
answering
you.
all these questions. I have the next session of question. It's really quick. It's called flash questions. So I will tell you like 2 options, and you need just to pick the one.
I might do the wrong thing, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, great. So let's start. Chess or Uno?
Chess.
Process or result?
Result.
Being an advisor or founder?
Oh, can't I take both? Probably advisor is good. Not everybody can be founder. So, yeah.
Detectives or comedy?
Comedy, we need to laugh a lot. So it needs to be fun at work.
And last one, and as for me, it's tricky. People or technologies?
Always people, because technology will not give us anything if we don't have the people.
Sure, agree with you.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming to our today's episode. It was a pleasure meet with you and speak with you and hear your answer to all of our questions. It was really valuable for us, and hope that you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, thank you, and hope we can dig deeper someday, because there's a lot of facts below what we talked about now. Yeah, and am I allowed to say Slava Ukraini?
Yeah, sure. Heroям слава.
Thank you.
Hit the like and subscribe button to not skip the following episode. Bye!